Hey guys, good morning. Welcome to Nigra Techies. This is our ASP.NET Core tutorial. So part of this video, I am going to explain authentication in Web API. And this is our continuation of our last video. In the last video, I have created one sample Web API application, but we not include the authentication. Now I am going to include this authentication. So basically in the Web API, we have three types of authentication. One is basic authentication, and the next one is JWT authentication. This JWT is a token-based authentication, and the final one is role-based authentication. But this video, I am planning to explain this basic authentication. So the basic authentication is the simplest authentication scheme built into the HTTP protocol. So if you are using this basic authentication while sending request from our client, you have to pass the authorization header. In the header, you have to pass the username and the password. In the API will validate our credential, and if it's valid it will allow to access the resource, otherwise it will throw the unauthorized error. That's all about the concept. Now I'm going to the application. So the application actually created using this VS Code, and in case if you are developing the application using Visual Studio 2022, that also fine because the changes and files names and everything is same. The only editor is different, so you can follow the same thing. And also I have pointed out the steps what actually we need to follow, so we can go one by one. So the first step is we have to enable the authentication by adding this use authentication. So let me go to the program.cs file. So if you see here, the default things use authorization, map controllers, runs are there. So before that I am going to include use authentication. Okay, we have done. So the second step is we have to create one handler. So this is very important one because whatever logics are there, we have to include in this handler only. So first I'm going to create one folder. Now let me create my handler. So this is just a CS file. So basic authentication handler. So look like our CS file is created. In case if you are using Visual Studio, it will include the default namespaces and also class. But here we have to do everything manually. So default one and the namespaces and my class is basic authentication handler. So our class is ready. Now we can implement the logic of authentication. So first I'm going to include on namespace. So the Microsoft ASP Netcore dot authentication. Okay. So after that, let me implement one of the interface authentication handler. Here I need to pass the parameters authentication scheme options. Okay, we have done. Now let me see. Okay, it's showing error because we have to implement this abstract member, and also we need to pass these all required parameters. So that's what it's showing the error like this. So first I'm going to pass these all parameters. So let me copy all the things. Here I'm going to create one constructor. So the constructor is public constructor only. So there are four parameters, and the first one is I option monitor. So it belongs to Microsoft extension. Okay, done. So let me give the name option, and the second one is logger, and the third one is URL encoder. It belongs to the namespace system.text dot encoding web encoder, and the final one is I system clock. Okay, done. Then we have to pass the parameters in the base. First one is option, then logger, and the third one is encoder. The final one is clock. Okay, we have done. And the next one is we have to implement the abstract method. So let me copy this abstract method. It's handler authentication asynchronous. Protected. So I'm going to use this task. Authenticate result. So for the implementation, so I'm initially just returning. So authentication result dot fail. So I'm just passing the empty value. So actually we need to include this override because this is the abstract method. Okay, see now the issue got resolved. So okay, we have done our handler. Actually we need to implement more logic in this place. So initially we have done something. So let me register this handler in our program.cs. So for this one, I think here also I need to include the namespaces for the authentication using Microsoft.ASP.NET Core authentication. Okay, great. So after that, let me add in the service side. So builder.services.add authentication. Okay, fine. Here we have to provide our authentication name. I mean our handler name. So this is the basic authentication handler. So let me copy this one. And we have added. So next we need to include this add schema. So okay, here also we need to specify our handler name. Okay, and this add schema here we have to provide our handler class. So our handler class is basic authentication handler. So let me copy this one. Okay, done. And before that we have to include the schema. So the schema is authentication schema. Authentication schema options. Okay, fine. And also don't forget to include the namespace product API vs handler because it's our class is available belongs to this namespace only. Okay, so now we have completed in our program.css. So our next step is we have to enable the authorization in our controller level. So let me include this attribute authorize. So in case if you are using Visual Studio, we have the option. So it will defaultly give suggestions. So you have to include the particular namespace. But in this VS Code, we have to include it manually. Okay, fine. We have done. Now I'm going to run this application and we can see the output. Okay. So let me stop this one. I'm going to run the application once again. .NET run. So it's showing some warnings. So actually, it's not that much important. So let me open in the browser. Okay. Now I am trying to access this getAll method. See, now it's returning this 401 error. And also we can check from our postman. So this is my actual URL and it's a get method only. Now I'm trying to access this one. Basically it's returning the 401 same. So the thing is we have to pass the authorization header here. So in case it's not there, you have to type manually. So after that's the value, first you have to type as the basic, then we have to provide our username and password, but in the encoded format. So for this one, I'm going to open one site, base64encode.org. Here you have to provide your username and password. So my username is admin user and my password is admin. So I'm separating this username and password using this colon symbol. So after that I'm going to click this encode. So it will generate the encoded string. So now I'm going to copy this one. Okay. So now actually I'm passing this header, but in the API we not handled properly. So in the handler side we are just returning fail. We are not checking anything. So now I'm going to implement the logic here. Here the first thing is whenever the request is coming, whether it's having any header value or not, we need to verify. So our first condition is request dot headers. So the container he authorization. If this is don't have any value, we can return the fail message. So we can include here. If it's don't have any values, we can return like this. No header found. Okay, fine. And the second thing is positive scenario. If in case it's having the header, we have to get the header value. For that, we have the class is called authentication header value. For accessing this one, we have to include one namespace using system.net http dot headers. Okay. Here this authentication header value parts. So inside that we have to give our header name. So now we have our header value, and the next step is we have to convert this into the byte format. Convert dot base 64 to string. So inside that we have to pass like our header value dot parameter. So the third step is we have to get the actual string. So here we need to pass these bytes. Okay, we have done. So the expected value in the credential, we will get our username and password combination. So whatever we provided like this, the similar way now we are getting. So let me split these two things. So the splitting against this colon. Okay. Now our username is array of 0, and the password is array of 1. So okay, great. Now we have our username and password. So our next step is we are going to interact with the databases, and the data are valid means I am going to create one ticket and will returning with a success message. In case the data are not valid means I am going to return the just to fail message like this. So this is all about plan. For interacting to the databases, I'm going to use the entity frameworks. The configurations are already done in my last video. So in case if you are not watched the last video, I will share the link in the description. You can watch it. So for accessing this entity framework, I have to inject the DB context here. So this one is available in the model. Yes, this is the namespace. And let me include here also. Okay, now we have injected our database context. Now I'm going to access the data where user equal to this dot db context, and my table name is table users. So item dot user id equal to username, and item dot password double equal to password. So actually I'm directly stored the password. So in case it's encrypted, you have to decrypt this one. Okay, fine. The first option is user double equal to null. We can blindly return, again it's a false. The message should be okay, we have done. And the last one is our positive scenario. So we have to return the positive message. So return authentication result dot success. So see, this is actually expecting this authentication ticket. So already we have a username password. So using these things, we have to generate one ticket and we need to return it. For the generating the ticket, we have the steps. First, we have to include one namespace using system.security.claim. First one is var claim. So new claim of, and claim type is name, and the value should be username. So whatever our identity value, we can pass it accordingly. That's not a problem. And the second step is identity. So new claim identity. So here we need to pass the claim value and scheme dot name. And the third one is principal. So new claim principal So again, here we need to pass this identity value. The final one is ticket. New authentication ticket. So it's expecting first one is the claim principal. So it's already we have. And the second one should be the property. So schema name. Okay, now we have our token. So let me return this one. So when the user consuming our services, in case if they won't get this claim values, they can access from their code. That's what we are returning this claim information. Okay, we are returning the ticket here, and why it's showing error. So yeah, it's expecting some result. In case it's don't have values in the credential, so we need to return the fail scenario. So we can pass the same message. That's fine. Okay, see now the error also got resolved. And now I am going to test this one. .NET run. So in the browser, hopefully we will get an 401 error only, because here actually we are not passing the authorization header. Yes, it's fine. And in this place, see actually we are passing the header, authorization header with the value. So it's already I taken. See now we are getting the output. So in case if I am not passing this header, I am getting this 401 error. And the third scenario, so in case if I'm providing some wrong input, like instead of this admin, I'm going to give admin1 the password, then it should be a invalid password. Not invalid, it's a wrong password. So let me try. So it's saying 401 unauthorized. Again, I'm giving the valid password, so it's returning the data. In case I'm providing the invalid format also, it will throw an error only. See now, the input is not a valid base64 format, so it will throw an error. So I hope you got some better idea about this basic authentication. In our next video, we are going to see this JWT token based authentication. Thank you. Thanks for watching.